James Carter, a 28-year-old millionaire, decided to test whether his fiancée really loved him or was only with him for his money. He told her that he had gone bankrupt and lost everything, and what she did left him speechless. It was a hot summer day. James was sitting by the window in a cozy cafe, drinking coffee. Every now and then, he glanced at his watch, showing great concern about the time. Then, James took out his cell phone and called a friend. He had been waiting for an hour, but unfortunately, his friend said that an important matter of utmost urgency had come up and he could not make it. James was upset with his friend. After all, it was his birthday, but he didn't want to show his dissatisfaction and said that everything was fine. He had planned to celebrate the day with just him, because he didn't want to be surrounded by too many people and he didn't like parties. However, every birthday always gave him some kind of inexplicable melancholy, and the boy became a closed and thoughtful person. He had recently returned to his hometown after 6 years living abroad. He studied at Stanford University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. James graduated with honors, and now he has returned home with a sense of accomplishment, ready to give his best to his father's company. James called the waitress over and asked her to bring him more coffee and a slice of cake. He then picked up his laptop and tried to focus on what really mattered, his work. He was one of the directors of a real estate company, whose founder was his grandfather, who had passed away and passed everything to his father, the now owner of the company. After a quick glance at the notes on his notebook, he put it away. The waitress brought the order, but James was no longer in the mood to eat, having lost his appetite after remembering yet another disappointment with his friend. So he simply thanked her and asked for the bill. The total amount was only $10, but James left a $50 bill and headed for the exit of the coffee shop. Just as he was about to leave, he heard someone shouting and asking him to wait. When he turned around, he saw the waitress coming toward him. She went up to him, out of breath, and said, "Sir, you forgot your change. Here it is." The man looked at the bills held out in his hand and replied that it was for a tip and that he didn't need change this time. Noticing the girl's look of surprise, the young man explained that today was his birthday and that the best way to celebrate was by doing something nice for someone else. The waitress just smiled and congratulated him on his kind gesture. Then she added, rather shyly, that her name was Jade, and that she would be very happy if he showed up at the cafe again. When he was already home lying in bed, James found himself thinking about Jade. She was very different from all the other girls he knew, and it was her peculiarity that attracted him. That smile was charming. He had been to the establishment before and always observed the young girl, but because of the rush of work, and because he was always accompanied by other employees of the company, he never had the courage to talk to her. James, despite his wealth, was a very lonely man. He also never had much luck in romantic relationships. The women James had met were either superficial or mercenary, and this traumatized him enough that he did not seek out any other girlfriend for a long time. But meeting Jade gave him a completely different feeling, a feeling he had never had with the other women he had dated. She caused a kind of comfort, and at the same time euphoria and nervousness, a mixture of feelings that was inexplicable to the boy. With these thoughts, James went to sleep. In the morning, when he went to work, he arrived at the office and found his secretary Olivia. She was a beautiful young woman who always dressed very well with jewelry and designer clothes. She also had a model appearance and an unmistakable perfume. James had known her since high school, they studied together, and they lived close by all their lives. Olivia's parents had become friends with James' parents, and as a courtesy, she got a secretarial internship at the family's real estate agency and worked helping James with administrative duties. James always knew that his parents would be happy if they got married, and the man had been noticing the looks she was giving him for a long time, but he was in no hurry to return them, and he didn't even think about whether he should. When she asked how his birthday had been, the man told her about his friend's abandonment and that he had spent the day alone, but that he also didn't care about special dates. To make up for it, Olivia offered to go out with the guy that weekend. Who knows? Maybe I can save you from this week full of disappointments, right? Olivia said. James agreed, feeling pressured, and then tried to divert the subject by turning on his computer and getting to work. He just wanted to get his mind off women for a while and focus on his career. When the weekend arrived, James, as promised, went on a date with Olivia. They went to a restaurant and then visited the theater. Olivia chattered and laughed non-stop, trying her best to make James realize how she felt about him. And at the end of the afternoon, when it was time to say goodbye, Olivia herself hugged James and tried to kiss him. But he walked away, saying that he was very tired and that he had had a busy day and didn't have the time of his life right now. He took Olivia home and then decided to go to the coffee shop where Jade worked. The girl recognized him and immediately approached him. James noticed the kindness and joy in her eyes as she took his order. And then James asked what her plans were for Sunday. "It's my day off, I think I'll stay home," Jade replied. The man didn't have to think much about it and invited her to spend the day with him. The young waitress agreed and gave James her phone number. The next day, he called the girl in the morning and they arranged to meet at an amusement park in the city, which was facing the sea. He spent the whole day preparing for the meeting, and his excitement made him feel like he was 12 again. He couldn't wait to see her. When the afternoon came, they met up and started having fun. They went on the Ferris wheel. They rode the roller coaster. They had ice cream, and then they went to a nearby coffee shop. The two were having the time of their lives. James asked Jade about her life, and she replied that she lived alone with her 10-year-old sister Sophia in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. "Sadly, my mother passed away about 2 years ago after losing a tough battle with cancer. My father, on the other hand, abandoned us as soon as we discovered her diagnosis and never came back." James, hearing her story, felt her sympathetically. That was their first night together. Since then, his heart has been divided into two halves. On one hand, he felt pressured to be with Olivia, as his parents wanted him to be, and on the other, he couldn't get Jade out of his head. He was afraid of making the wrong decision, and he didn't know if he would disappoint his parents or disappoint himself with whatever choice he made. Jane felt like she had no way out. She didn't want to hurt anyone or get hurt. One day, the boy called Jade, but she said through tears that her sister was sick, coughing a lot and with a high fever. James was very worried and decided to take her to the hospital immediately, and then he made sure to buy the necessary medicine. After that, James's bond with Jade became even stronger. He would often visit her and her sister, bringing groceries and having what they called movie night, where they would watch movies together and eat popcorn. At the same time, he couldn't stay away from Olivia, since they both worked together and were in constant contact. Then one day, the beautiful girl decided to risk it all and asked when they were going to get married. James nearly choked on his coffee and thought she was joking, but the woman continued on the subject and said that it was his own father who had suggested the idea. James looked at her with a puzzled look, and Olivia stared blankly, then left her office. James decided that very day to talk to his father about this unbelievable suggestion. He walked into his father's office and said it was absurd for him to make such a decision without his permission. His father looked at him with a serious expression, and when his son told him about his conversation with Olivia, he just looked thoughtful. James then said that he had already made up his mind. He liked another girl, a simple waitress, and said that he intended to marry her in the future. The father then became thoughtful and did not know what to answer. The situation was not good at all, because he had already called Olivia's parents to tell them that his son was going to marry her. There was a moment of uncomfortable silence in the office. James' father explained that this marriage would be good for the real estate business, as he was trying to convince Olivia's grandfather to merge his company with his. And with his granddaughter's marriage and the family's becoming one, this decision would be much easier for the elderly gentleman. James then said that he suspected that it was just the opposite, and that his father was actually being involved in a scheme. The young man explained that when he went out with Olivia, he realized that she was actually a superficial woman, and that she was only interested in his money. giving indications that her grandfather's company was not doing as well as her father thought, and the girl was trying to guarantee the good life by marrying him. All this made James' father very suspicious, and so he decided to suggest a plan. Let me fire you just for acting. Tell everyone that you don't work here anymore, and that I've disowned you. You'll stay home for a while, and tell Olivia that the company is on the verge of bankruptcy, so we'll see if she'll want to marry you with no money and no job. If she still wants to go through with it, it means she really loves you, James's father said. He liked the idea, but he was sure that Olivia would leave him if he ran out of money, because he knew that she loved the luxurious life and wanted to marry him only for the money and status. His father did not delay the plan, and immediately announced to the entire office that James was fired. As James was leaving the office, he left the door open, and his father shouted to the entire office that the young man was fired and disinherited, and must leave the company as soon as possible, before he called the security guards. And when Olivia learned that his father had disowned him, and now James was without money or inheritance, she went to talk to James' father, and he followed suit saying, "The truth is, we're on the verge of bankruptcy. It's only a matter of time before we lose everything." Hearing this, she looked deeply into his eyes, turned her back on James, and said that it wouldn't work for them to get married. "James, I'm so sorry. I'm not the kind of woman to stay with a broke man. Look at me, I don't even like being around poor people. And if you're going to become one, that's enough for me," Olivia said, turning her back on James. James left the office relieved, because he was sure who Olivia really was. He spent the night together with Jade and Sophia. They went to the movies at the mall, and then they all went to his house together. James kept smiling as he looked at Jade, but she could tell something was wrong, and asked if everything was okay. James looked at her, and after a long stare in the midst of an awkward silence, he said he was going to get married soon. Jade looked away in disappointment. She had no idea that James was already engaged. Then she began to cry, because what she felt for him was real, and she had not expected such disappointment. Then he took the woman's hand, looked into her eyes, and said that she did not need to cry, because she would be his bride, if she allowed it. James saw a beautiful smile on Jade's face. They hugged and finally became serious. Jade and Sophia moved in with James in his spacious apartment. The woman was enchanted by his apartment. She had no idea how much money James had, as he had always been very secretive about it, and she had never bothered to ask. 40 years had passed. James and Jade continued to be like soulmates, made for each other. Fortunately, James made the right choice, and we can end this story with a happy ending, but we must be very careful with the people around us, because the world is full of people who only like what we have, and not who we are. Thank you for watching. Comment below what you thought of this story, and which city you are watching from. Leave your like, and subscribe to our channel, so that together, we can build a huge community that shares inspiring stories. Until later,